everyone. We are Team 7. We're a diverse group from around the globe. We have Rieko from Japan, Eswar from India, Julie and myself, Jay, from the United States, and Arianna from Italy. So when we first started this journey, when we first met with Eurozone, we had a couple questions for him, and this was really before we even knew much about the European Union or the Euro crisis for that matter. And the question we had for him was, why is it so important to keep the EU together? And we were really surprised by his answer. He basically didn't respond in terms of economics. He didn't respond in terms of financial opportunity. He didn't respond in terms of market size or cap. He simply said, peace. And so for us, this was the beginning of our recognition that the Euro crisis is about more than monetary policy. It's about more than sovereign debt. It's really about people. And so this really hit home for us. And the concept that the EU has of human rights, equality. And so what we really began to understand is that, and Eurozone helped to explain to us, is that this is much more than financial. And he also helped us to understand kind of the elements of how the EU started. So he made it very simple in terms of, and was very, in terms of its humble beginnings, around building collaboration and cooperation, especially among those countries, Italy, France, Germany, that were dealing with the devastation from World War II. And it really started around economic cooperation, but it's blossomed into political cooperation, social cooperation, environmental cooperation. And so now what you see before you is what we've come to know as the European Union, this diverse collection of 28 member countries that represents 500 million people. And this thing we learned about, the Euro area, which is another 17 member countries that represents 330 million people. And it's really grown into a powerhouse. It's really grown into an economic force. But even with all that growth, obviously there's been tremendous crisis. And what we want to talk about is the fact that that economic growth has been based on kind of the standard economic model. And so despite all that, the people of Europe are suffering, and there's opportunity to make some change and some interventions. And so Eswar is going to take you through the next couple slides.
So everything looks seemed very good. So what really went wrong? What happened, right? So the debt kept on increasing. This is because the free money being available to gamble and to put it in a different market. So the debt kept on increasing. It went so much that if you look at the slides, it's like 160% on some of the down countries. If you look, it's more than 100% of their GDP. If you look at the extreme right corner there, like more than 25% of the people are unemployed. So how are these people coping up with all these things? Right? So what is the solution to this one? There's some simple solution. Right? Just blame somebody, right? It's easy. So there is another easy solution. One of them, right? Simple solutions. But I don't think they work. So what is the other one that can work? Austerity. Does it really work? Maybe it might work on the higher level. Maybe the economic condition might be okay, financial condition might be set. But what about the real people? How are the people being affected by it? So how are the people right now coping with it? So people agitating against it. The real intention of the union, where is it right now? So after losing the job, how are the people really feeling? How to make them visible now? So we drew a complex map in which we try to find out all the issues, and Arianna will just explain them.
Well, many people has also discussed that the crisis is not just about figures, and we saw all the figures before, but it's mostly about. And so, why is the European Parliament and Union failing to assess this problem? What we try to do is try to understand from a very deep point the crisis, and we come up with this. And we have so many elements. We have here the part with the debt and the increasing debt, and how all this measure with austerity, instead of in some way assessing and increasing the competitiveness of the countries, instead just made the company even decrease their competitiveness, and the debt of the singular individual increased as a consequence, and also the debt of the countries increased. So this was our map to assess all the problem, and we decided to focus our intervention on the leveraging points that you can see on the right top of the page, that are, once again, people.
So Jay talked about some of the origins of the European Union and its goals and where it wanted to go. And Eswar talked about some of the impediments that it's encountered just in the last few years. We're staying focused on the European Union's potential. When Lloyd Williams visited our class, he impressed us with a vision of success that has to include 4 elements. It has to include human elements, resource elements, political elements, as well as community elements. And it immediately became clear to us that the interventions and fixes are being designed and defined by this half of the pie, and the problems and effects are being designed and defined as this half of the pie. So it occurred to us to try to flip the approach, to start here, to try to affect here.
So the main problem that we recognize as the main driven of the European crisis is the lack of trust. People don't trust the system anymore. People don't trust the government anymore. And they are not even able to understand the policies that have been implemented. And as a consequence, we have more social problems. Because wherever there is a lack of understanding, the result is lack of trust. And when there is a lack of trust, of course the people will go against the system and will never try to convey a sense of, in some way, try to help the situation. So what we want to do with our intervention is transform the social problems in social solutions. As we see from this graph, these are pretty clear of the situation right now. And we can see a huge inequality between the Northern Europe and the Southern Europe in both of graphs. The first graph is the satisfaction with democracy that there are along the countries. And the second graph shows the trust in government. And we really like this graph because they're not just simple figures. They show the psychology that there is about the people. And we can see that in the southern country there has been a very, very big lack of trust and lack of satisfaction with the democracy. So all the policy that in which is based the European Union, and in this year increased so much. Well, instead in the Northern Europe, where there are not so many troubles, like for example in Italy or in Spain or in US, the situation seems to be better. And so how can we fill this gap? We decided to focus on the young generation. We decided to focus on the young generation because it's the generation that has the power to change the system. They are very willing to practice what they learn, and there are a lot of potential for motivation, and if we are able to motivate young people, they will for sure make a change. And in the young generation, there is a lot of creative power that can be used. And since one of the main problems, as we all know, is young unemployment, we will try to focus this power of the young people from the social problems in new job opportunities.
So Europe has already made some efforts at a particular intervention that we endorse, which is youth entrepreneurship training. However, as you can see from this map, the attention paid to it is pretty uneven. You see there's a density of specific strategy in the north, and in the areas where we're having economic problems, there's a lack of strategy around youth entrepreneurship, engagement, and training. The good news is there's already an infrastructure there to deliver it. There's already a national conversation. There's already some sort of plan in place. We just see that it needs to be kick-started, and it needs to be accessible, particularly in the areas that are most distressed and need the most levels of engagement, with 25% plus youth unemployment.
So how can we change this system? How can we make it happen? We came up with 3 main interventions that are the high school program, the college student program, and the community program. And now Rieko will illustrate this in more details.
Before going into the details, I would like to share a personal story with you all. I teach at public